The docks on Tuesday morning were crammed with thousands of Vietnamese desperate to escape from Saigon by any means possible. The harbor was full of small cargo ships, full of people whose only way out now was this desperate, perhaps suicidal attempt. As we, the press and the Americans evacuating, made our drive through Saigon to the American embassy, people, mostly families, pleaded with us for a seat, and they hung to the coach. The coach behind us suddenly accelerated, and children hanging on the side fell off and under the wheels. The city was suddenly choked with people, lorries and cars, all chasing one American evacuation convoy after the other. Jams that the Vietnamese police tried to clear with their rifles, but people were no longer afraid of them. There was now so much more to be afraid of. But then suddenly we too, the 40 or 50 of us in the safety of the coaches, had to get out and fight our way to the American compound where the helicopters were landing to fly us and the thousands more out of the country. Seeing us in the streets with our bags, the Vietnamese followed. Any chance they thought was better than none. But the embassy gates were closed, and we, like the frightened Vietnamese and their families, had to fight and claw our way up. And we did claw, and we did fight. And if it wasn't for one single American Marine, whose name I didn't have the chance or time to discover, we would never have climbed our way to our evacuation. He hauled us up, kicking and punching Vietnamese who were clambering over our bodies. We took our turn in the long crowd of refugees inside the embassy compound and waited for the helicopters to come down for us. One by one they came in, landing on an improvised pad in the car park. All had come from American aircraft carriers steaming 20 miles out in the South China Sea. Marines guarded each of the 4 embassy gates as the lucky people ran 30 at a time to their transport to safety. In the first 6 hours of Tuesday, over 1,500 people were airlifted out this way, and almost as many more were still waiting their turn. Our turn came just as it began to get dark, a little after 7:30. Evacuees from the besieged city on. And 30 minutes later, we landed safely on our carrier off the South Vietnamese coast. Michael Nicholson, News at 10.
On July 13, 1990, thousands of Berliners on both sides of the wall that had separated the city since 1961 gathered together in spontaneous celebration and began to dismantle the wall. Police and soldiers from east and west joined the celebration, handing out pieces of the wall. The world watched this symbol of the Cold War fall at the hands of the German people.
Today, the search has continued in the hills around Lockerbie for pieces of Flight 103. Helicopters scouring the hillsides and removing the pieces of the jumbo in an operation which now extends over an area of 150 square miles. Pieces of the wreckage are still strewn all over the countryside. Some remain embedded in the fields. Police and RAF troops have been preparing them to be taken away. They're being brought to a collection point in the hills 10 miles outside Lockerbie. The hundreds of police and troops involved in the operation will continue to work throughout the New Year holiday period. On part of the jumbo's fuselage, the emergency lights burning, a reminder of the suddenness of this catastrophe. A few miles away in the field where the cockpit fell, soldiers have been sweeping up its last remains for forensic analysis.
The nation and the world watched in horror as Al-Qaeda terrorists attacked America on 9/11/2001. All American TV networks became 24/7 news services.
City not just deep in water, but sinking deeper into anarchy. More looting overnight, but more than that, police totally unable to restore order. People dying of disease, a major American city in deep crisis. A few hours ago, the first real sign of help, a huge convoy of relief vehicles speeding past begging refugees who've camped on the motorway for 5 days. They've had little food or water. This man ill with a heart condition and no medicine. Dozens of boats have now arrived to rescue the thousands still trapped in homes and pockets of land. In one area, 1,500 are trapped. Another 100 who were with them have now died. An early morning journey through a half-submerged city, and it's eerie. The buildings torn apart by wind, or flooded, or burned. Like the cars, most of them will never be used again. It was a city of 500,000 people. There are now perhaps a few hundred left.
If I have to leave here, I've left here victorious over nature.
Because you've survived.
I survived. Not only have I survived, I've survived well.
But so many did not. The lifeless float on the streets they walked last Sunday. The people above can see their dead neighbours below. They won't leave because they're scared by reports of killing and raping in the city.
Interstate Highway 10, suddenly an airfield. The most expensive rescue mission ever visited upon America's underclass, streaming up onto the freeway from their still waterlogged homes after more than a week of helpless neglect. In 2 boats with police aboard, we crisscrossed several square miles of District 7 and never encountered another search boat. The inundation has covered more than 100,000 dwellings. Some of the dead are in these attics. On our way back, the toxic smell of the water interspersed with the telltale stench of human death.